Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. This video is about how other people are being unreasonable, with an emphasis on the government and the governing class. So first of all, what is more absurd than expecting Jesus to assimilate and arguing that you're trying to convince yourself that a fake fairy tale Jesus is magically the real one? A gay, kind of hippie looking Jesus that people say that they saw all the time. The problem with the argument that, hey, everyone knows that's fake is that so many people claim to have seen Jesus, and many of them claim that he looks like the false image of Christ we see everywhere. And some people spend a lot of money on portraits and statues and so on and so forth. The bottom line is we're talking about God here, right? We're not talking about a stupid game. We're talking about God. And they're making it a stupid game. A generational Greco-Roman, Judeo, LGBT, white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacist game. So let's kick some facts here. Besides what I just said, obviously. One analysis found that white men in the U.S. hold 62% of all elected offices at the local, state, and federal levels, despite compromising only roughly 30% of the population. Now, I'm not trying to insult white people in this video. I'm not. I'm just trying to help you understand what's going on here. I'm part white. I'm not racist. My mother's white, and so on and so forth. I was engaged to a woman who was Italian and Greek some years back. Okay. So, obviously, one thing that it suggests immediately is that white women are underrepresented in the government. Okay? But so are other people, right? People of color. Now, I can't stress this enough. Even if people of color had equal representation in the government, it doesn't mean that they would be treated fairly. Because the people in the government are almost all, if not all, whitewashed people who are just puppets for white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacists. So when we're talking about statistics here, like how black people are disproportionately arrested for crimes, statistics about how corporate crime is ignored, how over $160 billion in tax revenue is not paid by rich people because they take advantage of loopholes that should be illegal or semi-illegal or illegal. Pretty straightforward. You see, tax rates aren't set in stone, but apparently conservatives think they are. And they don't think that you should raise taxes on the rich, even a fraction of a percent, to solve poverty, like child poverty. 1 in 5 American children are said to live in poverty. You have numbers like 11 to 13 plus million children in America are said to live in poverty. And they suffer from food insecurity, not knowing where their next meal is coming from, going to sleep hungry, what have you. Very sick. Now, I have 23 witnesses on record to the fact that they changed my voice. They'll try to make it so I sound like sarcastic or gay or stupid. They do stuff like that because they're immature. Because a lot of the reason why there's so many white people in office is that there's a concerted effort to keep them in there, by corporations, social clubs, fraternities, and even the groups that we see as the corniest of all, perhaps, secret societies. Very stupid, very corny, very immature that these people are in secret societies with these stupid sexual control themes, what have you, right? I always bring up that fraternities are concerned with controlling who fraternizes with who, social clubs are concerned with who socializes with who, and secret society, right? Secret, right? The word secret is a plain word for secrete, like a secretion, and secrete, where King Minos is said to be the father of homosexuality in Greco-Roman mythology. And I'm not gay, but gays who are obsessed with me are constantly fuming and poisoning me and changing the sound of my voice and speech pattern. If you hang around me enough and we were to go to different places, you would see that I'm fumed in many places. Every once in a while I get some more fresh air and I sound more normal. That's not a coincidence. I have 23 witnesses on record to the psychological operation against me. Not only have other people vouched for that, and I should be able to say, hey, other people have noticed it too, but I had to make sure that they were on record because people play stupid about things like that. Think about that. Imagine if I didn't have them on record. They'd say, that's in your head. We don't believe that these people noticed that. He made that up. Think about the implications of that. Okay. Now let's talk about keeping white people safe, right? So you think that they're doing all this to make sure that white people are safe. Hogwash. Utter rubbish. As I say hogwash, I'm trying to be diplomatic to a fault. That's kind of a corny term. I take it back. Okay. So 62% of the victims of violent crimes were white, according to one study. And that just happens to be like the exact number, the exact percentage that white people make up the population, right? The exact percentage of the population that's said to be white. Now, this is a more interesting statistic here. According to FBI.gov, okay, table 43, 69.9% of all adults arrested in 2019 were white. Now, I'm sure we all know that black people are disproportionately arrested for various reasons that have to do with geopolitics, socioeconomics, what have you. And the fact that they're treated a certain way, which makes them more agitated. When people are more agitated as a group, that group is more likely to get fed up and commit crimes. Okay, so even if you were to argue America isn't racist, which is a ridiculous argument, the fact that there's a concerted effort to convince them it is makes it so they're more agitated, more likely to commit crime. And that's a governing failure. Now, who makes up the government, right? If 62% of all elected officials at the state, local, state, and federal level are white males, well, we got to add like maybe 10, 15% or whatever for white females. So the vast majority of elected officials are white, and the money is disproportionate with whites and Jews. And the Jews are in white culture. These guys in the government, they're not all rabbis or something. They're in white culture, Neo-Roman culture. The Senate was in Rome, not in ancient Israel or something in the Bible. We have a white political system with corrupt politicians who are basically all white or whitewashed. Therefore, white culture can be said to be a fill in the blank. So YouTube doesn't, you complain or something, say, hey, you're not supposed to say that, and we're taking the video down, by taking the video down. Yeah, it might sound, I do sound a little bit kind of, I sound a little bit off in this video right now, but they're probably going to make it worse. But the bottom line is I've proven my point beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, if we talk about Christianity, right? In the midst of this, most of these people, these elected officials, are Christians. Okay? Now, and the biggest denomination of Christianity, if you consider them a denomination of Christianity, some people argue they're not Christian, is Catholics. And they have all kinds of problems with crime and child molestation and so on and so forth, like the other denominations do. Okay? Now, lots of them have been aware that I'm targeted. And they aren't rallying to me, because they worship the devil and rally to the ones the devil set apart. Like Christ in the Bible was complaining when he was talking about the Jews, right? He was saying that you people follow only your own. And I don't think it's a coincidence they call it a Judeo-Christian culture. However, we are still talking about white culture. Even if everyone in the government was Jewish or something else, the fact they're in white culture and they live a white lifestyle, okay, has created the problem. Not living like rabbis or something else. So the problem is firmly in white culture. Now ask yourself, what kind of lunatic would want to maintain the existing culture, especially in the name of white supremacy or helping white people? 62% of violent crimes were white. Okay? At least in one recent year. So that's like the trend. It's something around the fact that most violent crime victims are white and most of the perpetrators are white. So your culture is causing white people to be hurt all the time and to be arrested all the time. 69.9% of all adults arrested in 2019 were white. And you have like 50,000 suicides here. I'd imagine at least 25,000, 30 of them, whatever, are white people killing themselves. But you think you're keeping white people safe by keeping them in their immoral culture that you want to preserve, right? A conservative is inclined to preserve the existing cultures, institutions, customs, unspoken rules, you name it. That's stupid, right? Well, the churches are helping them do it. They're like, we like things a certain way, guys. That's retarded. Now, keep in mind that radical leftists are basically insane, but they are conservative strawmen. If you're a conservative state where conservatives make up all the right and a good portion of the left, okay, because they're called conservative Democrats. They're people like Hillary Clinton, Obama to some degree. They're people who have a lot of conservative values. They want to maintain the fraternal structure of America. They want to maintain the system. They don't think that, hey, we should drastically change the system. They say the system magically works. It's just you people aren't doing enough, which is nonsense. There's some truth to that, but it's 99% nonsense. The system is thoroughly structured. I've studied this for years as a brain surgeon, as a top martial arts. The system is structured to keep people down. The structure of the system is a huge problem, and the governing class driving it is a huge problem. And the economy, which is the expected output of said system, is why people won't get together, because they're not all me. I'm the top martial artist ever possible. They're just a lemming. They're too scared and stupid to rally to me. And they cite things like they have to, put food on the table. They don't want to be blacklisted, what have you. We live in an authoritarian system. We always have. Since 1776, America has been a fanatically authoritarian system. And with proxy wars and underhanded methods, they've made sure that other governments are authoritarian. But let's go back to colonialism in the history book here. When America, or the West rather, first touched down, there was a bunch of tribes who were relatively peaceful. Some of them weren't peaceful. Some of them were very violent. But a lot of them weren't. So now, after colonialism, how come every government in the world is oppressive and authoritarian? How did that happen? Oh, it's like a cultural phenomenon. Thank you.